I've been using my EMS machine for about 3 weeks now, and I tend to use it on a daily basis. Now, it has just come to my attention that I allow myself to get shocked repeatedly for 20 minutes without a break by myself. Is that normal? Hello everyone, welcome to Nareen's Life with MS. This is Nareen and it's time for what MS taught me. And I thought today we'll talk about a topic that maybe I have approached before, but it is definitely a topic that, that, about a quality that I used to think I had. And now it becomes next to impossible to have. And that is subtlety. Because, there used to be a time in the past where I like to think that I was a little subtle in my communication, in how I reacted, in how I did certain things. And there was a certain air of subtlety around me and, whatever I would do. Now, all of that subtlety has gone out of the window. In fact, it's probably an even bigger window than the one I'm looking at. And the window I'm looking at is definitely, wider than my arms spread apart wide. And the reason I'm saying this is because, when you have something like MS, you start losing a few things, right? You lose your sense of, having anything being remotely light as one thing. There's nothing delicate about what you end up doing once you have MS, or if you have MS for a long enough time, right? There are there are certain things that require delicate movements. Yeah, those things do not exist anymore because it's not about the things that are require a meticulous approach. Now everything either you know you have to, rather than touch something to turn it on, you have to press it, right? If that makes it any easier. Everything becomes a little bit more tangible as a result. And at the end of the day, like I said, subtlety goes out of the window, right? There is no such thing as subtlety when you have MS, because MS just ends up being something where you yourself lose the idea of subtlety, right? I mean, even if there was a chance that you could hide a certain reaction, let's say on your face, on your body, it's definitely going to be visible for everyone, right? And and one of the funny things is that I say all of this knowing that MS is called the invisible disease, and I think I've talked about it in the past, but it's only visible until a certain extent, right? After after that day, the day that MS becomes visible, yeah, everyone's going to know it. And of course, you can't be very subtle with that. So I remember in the past, something that I would be subtle about was the fact that I had MS. Now, early on in my disease, I'd say for the first 5, 6 years, more or less, it was easy enough to laugh out, a faux pas, a gaffe, something like that. It would be easy to, you know, talk it out, laugh it off, be subtle about it. But then after a certain point, after, you know, my MS said, okay, it's time to stop hiding, it's time to stop being invisible. Here it is in full glory. I also had to just let myself out in the open, right? And it it's actually a very interesting thing to think about, because when you are diagnosed with MS, you generally don't know what it's all about, right? You can read literature, you'll know the theory, you might know what this disease does, you might know people who have it, there might be 100,000 other things that you can think about. But considering that your disease will be personal to you, means that you know it will have a mind of its own in terms of whether it wants to stay invisible or become open to the entire world. So, and I think in the same way, the concept of subtlety comes into the picture. Right now, you can be like me, you can be diplomatic to the best sense of the ability. But at the end of the way, at the end of the day, just like your body wants to stop hiding itself, your disease wants to stop hiding itself, your subtlety also wants to stop hiding itself, right? And it will come to you in due time. It will come to you in terms of the faces you make, the reactions you have, the emotions you show, the language you use, the amount of patience you have. All of these things will over time start changing. And the reason becomes that you have a disease that you know is called invisible at the start, but that's just a timer waiting to start ringing, and ring so loudly that everyone gets to know. So that is a little thing about what MS taught me about subtlety, about how to be, how to realize that, you know, you at one point in time have to be as open as possible, right? If something hurts, if something is not pleasant, you have to say it. If something isn't, um, agreeing with you, you have to point it out. And there's no two ways about it. You have to be as direct as possible. And that is another thing that MS taught me. So do let me know how you approach subtlety yourself, right? Are you subtle still in certain ways that allow you to be a little demure, a little meek in your approach, or are you just blunt, right, and straightforward, right, frank to a fault, let's say? Because at the end of the day, you know I think it's a way in also allowing us to be more direct in our communication, right? We do not want to stop. We do not want to do something that will not help us out at the end of the day. So the whole point of subtlety is it just flies out of the window, and it will fly. I mean, you might still retain it to some extent, you might still have it for a while, but that thing is on a timer and it is ready to escape whether or not you're ready. So please do share in your thoughts, your insights, your comments, or your experiences as to when subtlety left you when you got MS, right? When did you decide to take the idea of subtlety and either dispose of it or put it deep into your closet because you could not use it anymore? And let's get the conversation started. So with that said, this is Narain's Life with MS. I am Narain, and since I have nothing more to say, and considering it is Wednesday, the weekend is very close to us, and the week is just a downhill ride from now. So let's wait for it. But of course, with that being said, this here's me wishing you a good night, sweet dreams, and I will catch you tomorrow. Bye.